So our mission was to kind of implement some of this. I'm not going to drive you through me kind of looking at CSS, staring at it, and copying it. But you can kind of see as we go through. And we'll look at the completed example as well. Again, as we saw before, you can go to the Inspect tab. You can get a sense of like what the font, what the weight is, stuff along those lines. My favorite, the line height, because I will forever struggle with that and have to refresh the page all the time. And again, like, does your text field need, a flex box? Probably not. But it at least helps you with some like helpful hints to figure out what you're trying to implement as you go through. Like, what are the colors? If there were border radiuses, right? I have two ways of acquiescing like what the padding on a button element should be as I implement it, right? I can hold the Alt key or kind of hover over some of the different pieces, right? Or I can go ahead and look at that in this case and say, okay, again, like I would probably choose to use padding rather than static positioning some text. This is not going to get you fully out of writing CSS, but it will at least help with some of like the tiny little details that you might otherwise kind of play around with. So we can take a look at this, but basically this is kind of an implementation of it that we can see as well, where I just kind of took all the different pieces and styled it to look. The fonts look a little bit different because I think the web fonts are slightly different in the browser versus in Figma, but generally speaking, we can kind of figure out roughly what the font size is, what the font weight should be, how we want to align things, like how to get the buttons kind of in the right position, and stuff along those lines. So it is super helpful. Again, I wouldn't rely on the CSS and just copy and paste it and like mark the ticket as done. But at least like takes some of the guesswork out and gets you a head start. OK, so let's talk about this segue here into the next section. So as we saw before, and I'll zoom back in on that, we have all these boxes. What would happen if I wanted to make another yellow box, or maybe a yellow circle, right? There's a bunch of ways that I could do it, and none of them scale. I could like duplicate it, and then like that would work. But if I needed something totally different, just of the same color, like, oh, now I want an icon or something else, like this is going to, or text that's the same color, it's going to get hard. I could go in either design or inspect and like grab the values and just start using that all over my design. But like the engineer in you should be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not, because then I'm going to have to go ahead and change every hex code when we decide we're going to go with a slightly different shade of yellow. I won't. You could select all and change it, but like there should be some part of you which is like, when I'm writing code, I don't write the same value over and over again. I store it in a variable. I make a CSS class, something along those lines. Like that same kind of like set of like set of like laziness really that you have as an engineer. Like works here as well. So I guess the question is, and I kind of already answered it, but like how would we go about doing this, right? And again, like I could like use the little eyedropper tool here and go to fill, and I can be like, okay, now I want this to be orange. I could do that, but like that won't work if it's on another page. You can see how this doesn't really work. We're going to need some additional tools here in order to figure this out.